And I think many of us that grew up going again, when you hear about the wooden benches and you hear about the stained glass, the nostalgia is so real. It is such a memory that those of us that grew up in black homes where come hell or high water, you can smell it, right? And I think the reason for me it was such a powerful introduction is because it is a feeling we can all relate to. Obviously, the difference for you is it reminded you of the last time you were there, and particularly how emotional your grandparents were and how emotional you were about the fact that they had to say goodbye to this place that was home. And Goku was not celebrated in a way that you had imagined. And yes, it's joyous to be like, I'm going to retirement, but also it's quite a depressing, daunting thought of what next. And then you touched on the part of the Sunday school protocol area. You cannot go comfort somebody because it's started to do less dead. I'm curious about that little boy. So when you made your way back to the church, what was the first emotion? Was it the nostalgic, oh wow, this feels like home? Or was it the last time I was here, a certain upbringing and teaching and indoctrination to a sense put me in a position where I couldn't even go and comfort my grandmother, who anyways you didn't even celebrate her the way you should have?
I think it's a bit of both. And by the way, before this launch here in Rosebank, we went to that church. My family and I, some of them are here. I wish they could stand up. I don't know where they are. But we actually, the grandchildren.
If you acknowledge yourself as a family member, one of you better come and do some praise. Ne? So prepare yourselves before I come to you. Can you praise some?
Yes, you better prepare. So we went to that church for the first time as a family to worship and pray for the first time since 1984. That's almost 40 years.
Yep.
My uncle, who couldn't make it tonight, is about turning 82 this year. I quote him extensively in the book. The last time he was in that church, he had all his brothers and parents. Today is the only one. He's a surviving son of my grandfather. So it was very emotional for him too. So, and it was a beautiful reunion. Lots of tears were shed. I know the MC of the day just cried through the program. So taking it back to my first time, which was 2019, when I went to that church, I mean, you know, by the way, Gelukspan is not telling that she's also a grandchild of a minister of religion of the same Dutch Reformed Church. She just was not baptized there, she's a grandchild. So when she sees this, when we see these churches, for me at least, you know, our grandfather built this church in 1956. So when we see it, we see his works. I suppose when we were younger, with our naivete, we were entitled to these places. We felt like this is our grandfather's place. This is his hospital. My son always says, why don't you go back to that hospital so that they pay you and you make money out of that hospital? And he can't understand that it's now owned by the government and the intricacies of government.
That's the next book.
Yes, reclaiming the hospital.
Yeah, we got it.
But it was an emotional journey, seeing the decay, seeing how the place is not what it used to be. I mean, if you look at those pictures, it was a grand building. It was really stunning. The wooden flooring, the steeple that went on, the church bell that rang, and the ceilings, the pressed ceilings and all that. It was really a majestic building by any standards. And seeing it in that state was really hard to understand and digest and accept. And it's not only that, because I actually go into the entire complex. It was not just a church. It was a church, the hospital, the homes, the nurses' home, the home for the people living with disabilities. It was a huge complex. And it's just sitting there in ruins. There's a part where I talk about the hall, where we used to have beauty pageants and dances, all the entertainment of the 70s and 80s. and now it's just home for spiders, and it's falling apart. So yeah, I encourage you to read that chapter. It's one of my favorite chapters that I wrote with a lump in my throat.
So what do you think, because I'm sure when you started this journey that it became a book, you had a different why to now that the book is written, we're here launching it in Rosebank. What is the why?
The why I wrote the book. Well, I've been reading a lot of stuff, and I'm aware of the trends and the conversations that are happening about Africans and our stories, and how we need to write ourselves into history. And I'll say this again, that our parents did not come into this world from Ahal. There's something that they left for us to take up and make sense of it. And that is really the why. I really, besides the fact that my grandfather was just this larger-than-life person, if you want to know a celebrity, you should have seen my grandfather. Wherever we went, he was actually mobbed by people. Even in town, when he went to get his medication, there'll be someone following us and telling us stories about what a great man he was. And as a child, I never really understood, and maybe I took it for granted. So that memory is part of the why. I wanted to understand this man and what made him so special to so many people. But now as I sit here, the why is we need to tell our stories. We rely too much on oral traditions, on word of mouth, and it always lets us down, I'm afraid. We don't record these conversations. We take it from auntie whoever and uncle whoever, and by the time it gets to you, it's a little distorted, it's not really what he meant or she meant. And I think the written word has the power, the enduring power, to stay for years and years, and for future generations to just refer to it and say, what did they say about life in 1952, Gelukspan? Or what was life like for black families whose parents were in the service of the church? There are so many strands to these things. I mean, the book goes a step further to talk about my own reflections as a Christian, and which is a choice that I made. There are people in my family who don't really relate to the church the way I do. I'm a full member. I go to the church is called United Reformed Church in Alex. I'm so proud to see some of the members of the church present to support this. And
so Goku passed the fail
yes.
Yes.
I'm Pastor. I was Cape Town. Your big project. I was Lesley Mofokeng's intern at the City Press, and thanks so much up to him, and I'm really blessed that he was able to call me today and come and support his project. I used to put a lot of red paints through my scripts. And, today, I'm just glad he recognizes me as a friend. Off to the questions.
You can also put red pens through his book.
Your research, did it bring you closer or further away to your church, and why?
Should I respond to that?
Yes.
Okay. It made me make peace with the church. This book does not say walk away from your religion, does not say church must fall. It just says question some things. I had my answers, I understood. Now when we open the Hosanna or the Philadelphia church and we sing a hymn, I sing them differently. I question every line. I look at the author of the hymn and I always imagine what was going in their head when they say, or they say, so I question these things. So, probably it has just made me make sense of it and accept it. I'm not leaving my church, no, and I'm not going off to train as a traditional healer. Because someone said to me, why are you talking about ancestors? Are you not supposed to be like a church person? I'm like, but I'm still an African at the end of the day. I don't want to walk away from what God gave Africans. There are gifts that were given to us as Africans that you will never find on any other continent. And as much as we've accepted Western influence, we still have to recognize that we're still Africans. Thank you.